Our scripture reading this morning, again, as last week, comes from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verses 22 and 23, again from the same translation by Agnes Iswaran. Oh, that's why. They live in freedom who have gone beyond the dualities of life. Competing with no one, they are alike in success and failure, and content with whatever comes to them. They are free. Without selfish attachments, their minds are fixed in knowledge. They perform all work in the spirit of service, and their karma is dissolved. Imagine a time when seemingly really bad things happen, and you can stay calm. Calm as if in the eye of a hurricane. Emotionally unaffected and able to take action completely centered and unhurried, just dealing with whatever comes along the best way you can, and not just once, but as a way of living continuously. Does that sound good or what? I have dreamed of that many a times. I even lived it every now and then in a single small situation, like you will have done as well. But continuously, oh my, that is still in the making for me, and with quite some room for improvement. Today in our sermon, let us first try to identify what mechanism is at work behind all that, what the general pitfalls are, and what we can help and what can help us along the way to keeping an even mind more often, so that we indeed are changing for the better. All right, let us get right into the mechanism, and a mechanism it really is. When I was younger, I happened to be on an emotional roller coaster. It was not that I couldn't see my shortcomings, I actually blatantly did. When I reread old diaries, I have to wonder why I did not make more out of quite good observations, why I did not learn more, why it wasn't an impetus for change. And now I have come to believe that I just did not understand the process as a mechanism that can be altered by me. In my mind, it was something that was superimposed onto me. My mood swung from good to bad, from bad to good, and that had to have a reason. That much was clear. And what better reason than that somebody else made me feel bad, right? For the good moods, I gladly took responsibility, not so for the bad ones. So I had to search, and guess what? I always found something or someone who had done or said something because of which I thought I had that negative feeling or a reason to feel hurt. If you look at this from a distance, it so resembles the emotional turmoil we go through in puberties. But also what so-called manic depressive people go through. I therefore suppose puberty is in reality meant for us to learn to control our own emotions in good times as in bad times, and to learn taking responsibility for all of them. There is a mechanism that would explain a lot to us, if only we were taught that during puberty. It is a mechanism of a pendulum. But of course not in the physical sense, but as an allegory. The pendulum swings, and we may come to realize so do our feelings and emotions. What is perhaps most startling for a bit is the fact that even though things seem to be going really well for us, it is pertinent to refrain from identifying with, or in other words, to let ourselves feel intensely into this outcome as well, like being proud of it. this indeed is as disastrous as being overwhelmed by the negativity on the other side of the pendulum. All of these intense emotions are being created by us giving certain events a distinctly positive or negative connotation. And that is exactly what keeps the pendulum swinging and swinging and swinging. The pendulum, being a pendulum, has to swing from here to there, from right to left, from good to bad, from cold to hot, from easy to difficult, for as long as we assign a certain quality to any situation. Our very own judgment and continued judgment, be it good or bad, delivers the energy to keep the pendulum in motion for us on a personal level. And no, it doesn't need to be negative to have negative ramifications. Our decision of assigning what we experience as a superb quality is exactly as disastrous as giving it the exact opposite. As far as the pendulum goes into the good, it will go into the disaster area on the other side. That is what I believe we were all supposed to find out and learn during our puberty and early adulthood. And many of us didn't quite learn this because we were not taught. Even our parents at times may not have had their emotions under control, and how could they teach us if they hadn't been taught? It had to become something we had to figure out ourselves. And we started to look on the outside, at least for the bad stuff happening. How, after all, could we be responsible for the bad things in our lives if we so adamantly were searching for the good? We could have gleaned from the positive things, which we never had an issue of owning, and that they were being produced by us, that also the negative ones are being put into motion by our own thinking and feeling. But the shame of making mistakes hindered us. In any event, judging things always produces the energy to make the pendulum swing as far to the opposite, namely the extreme bad. We are therefore the real creators of our own misery and joy in each and every case. Let's abstractly look at something heinous for a second, and let's just call it something being done to an innocent child. Just by assigning to the seemingly oh so justified negative judgment, we are providing the energy that sets the pendulum into motion. And guess what? Not for the child at all. No, we do that to our own life. We have to deal with the karma of having judged, and have to be judged likewise, unless, of course, we are able to forgive. But if we had already forgiven, we would have abstained from judging to begin with. But maybe we now start to realize how important forgiveness is for our lives and start committing to it as a daily practice. The choice again is ours. And as we have identified earlier, it is not just the bad judgment that makes us suffer. No, it is also elevating an event, object, or feeling into the oh-so-good arena that makes us suffer thereafter. Both provide the energy for the pendulum to swing. Now, if we, on the other hand, accept everything as is, and just deal with it as it comes along, we do not create karma. We then master ourselves and with it the outside world, because it cannot make us react in any which way. We just stay in equanimity, and thus we are truly free. Let's now get to the pitfalls. One of them we already identified. When something is so obviously wrong, we still cannot judge without hurting ourselves. Let us think about it also this way. What does a seemingly justified judgment do for anybody? Does it take away anything that already happened? Does it become undone? And the answer is no, it cannot become undone. So what sense does it make to go on a rant? The answer is it does not make any sense at all. It is just an outlet to let our emotions go haywire, and we have to pay a very steep price for it thereafter without producing any benefit on top of that. Becoming aware of this, understanding the pendulum mechanism of judgment and its detrimental effect on our lives now has the potential to sharpen our awareness in such a fashion that we now can consciously or try to consciously choose refraining from any judgment so that we stop hurting our very own life. So let us do that. Another pitfall could be when we want to console someone for what has happened to them. We again have to be very vigilant not to judge. Instead, we can sympathize with their hurt, but we have to refrain to let ourselves getting into the judgment arena altogether again. And what would it provide other than more reason to push the person we want to console into victimhood? If we want to help, we need to empower people. We tell them we are there for them. We believe in a good outcome, in their strength and wholeness to get through this. The last pitfall I want to mention is a very peculiar one. And it is something that we may not realize. As we all know, we learn from mistakes. And judgment is a mistake, as we have seen and heard often enough. We already saw that with judgment, we are hurting ourselves. But we now will learn that our seeming opponents are in reality our proponents for our expansion in consciousness, or in other words, for our spiritual growth. How is that, you may ask? We have often heard the saying that we cannot solve a problem in the energy that it was created in. Meaning, for example, we cannot overcome hate by hating back. We cannot undo stealing by stealing back. We cannot undo hitting by hitting back. We have to love instead. As Jesus asked us, we have to love our enemies. So here is a scenario. Somebody did something bad to us. It is now our job to forgive them. And let's say they are still trying to get to us, but we still cannot react because that makes us become part of the fight. We have to do the opposite. Sounds easy, is not really, but at the same time it's not so bad either. Now I want to propose a thought to you. I don't know about you, but I do believe in soul contracts, which basically means we make a contract with people before we incarnate in order to set up the learning stage to accomplish certain learning goals we have set for this lifetime. If that is so, didn't we then necessarily agree beforehand to go through certain difficulties because we wanted to learn certain things? Aren't then these difficulties provided out of love so that we indeed would have an opportunity to outgrow ourselves? If that is true, then our seeming opponents in today's lives are the necessary catalysts for our spiritual growth to occur. They have to play the bad guys so we can prove to stay on the divine path even under pressure, and they are therefore the true proponents for our expansion in consciousness. And we actually do the same thing for others. So, how can we now go about it? Changing our attitude about issues and certain issues. What I do is that I first and foremost use affirmation. And I first experience what am I supposed to learn in this situation. You know, sometimes things go on and on for a long time, and I was I was thinking that forgiveness is a thing you do just once or twice or 3 times or whatever, and then you are done. But I had to find out that it doesn't work that way. It comes, it goes, you think you're done with it, and all of a sudden, 5 months later, a year later, it swoops again over you, and you are taken into a turmoil again, and you know, gee whiz, I did not forgive completely. And so we have to forgive again. We have to do it over and over again. And sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes I can get into that mode more easily than at other times. But what helps me the most is if I repeat affirmations, like the affirmations we had last week, and I repeat them. I repeat them daily. I may write them. I may recite them. I run with them, and I think about them in bed, and it is sort of like what I want to do to get rid of all the issues in my life. And all of a sudden, after a few weeks that I do that, I find myself changing. I find myself changing in situations where I previously got completely annoyed, and all of a sudden, I'm not getting annoyed. I can just let it be. Or I would have wanted to react in a certain way towards people, and I all of a sudden don't do it. Now, that is a clear indication for me that my reciting of those affirmations really has done something for me. And it's because it's manifesting as a reality in my life. Let's assume it is an affirmation of having stopped judging others or myself. I now can start incorporating additionally an affirmation which acknowledges, for example, the following. I am so grateful for my seeming opponents being the true proponents for my expansion in consciousness, who actively force me to overcome their adversity by me engulfing them with acceptance, forgiveness, and love. So I start doing this affirmation over and over again. I write this affirmation, I recite it, whatever you want to do, just do it. And if you continue, you feel that you all of a sudden can let go. You can see them different. You can almost be thankful. And if you realize, man, I can be thankful for this person of having done that to me, because otherwise I would not have outgrown myself. I would have never come into the situation if everything between the two of us had been good. The person actually then was of greatest importance so that I can overcome this world and become free. And so it's like a really different kind of pitfall. It's a pitfall of not seeing a person aright and seeing their job in our lives aright. It's we can almost then, once we have, let's say we did our Ho'oponopono to release over and over again our adversity, and we forgive them and we forgive ourselves for not having seen it earlier, we can really resolve everything between us and see things aright, and that makes us free. It takes time, and it comes back over and over again, and we have to work on it again and again, but it becomes better and better and better, I promise. So I generally then do those affirmations and the release of everything for weeks in a row. And through this, we inch our way in, and through repetition after repetition, it will become our truth. It really will become our truth that we then can live. But it's work. It doesn't happen overnight. It's dedication and endurance, and we always have to have our goal inside, our own freedom. And that's what makes it all worthwhile. By stating affirmations of truth, we put our life into motion and give it the direction we want. Truth is by design guided by God, and we start living more harmoniously, leaving bit by bit our reactivity and judgment behind, until we find one fine life and day reach purity and with it enlightenment. And so it is.